I can't believe they just left us as if it weren't their turn to clean up the gym. Oikawa said as he locked the door and looked at the other two men standing in front of him. They started walking out of school. I stopped complaining, it was your fault anyway. Hey. So, I mean 𝑣𝒖. What do you even mean by that? It wasn't my fault. Yes, it was. Oikawa looked at Hinata with puppy eyes. Yes, it was your fault, Toru-kun. Hinata said and looked in front of him. Oikawa stopped walking for a moment, not believing that Hinata just decided to take 𝑨𝒖 side. He pouted but quickly catched up to them. They walked to the cafe about 15 minutes from school and sat down in a silent corner. With constant stroking they ordered their drinks and desserts. Once they got their order and the waiter went away, the silence began. All of them sipped from their drinks and Oikawa took a spoon of his dessert. 𝑨𝒖 took the first step and broke the silence. How come you're here? Hinata didn't bother to look up and continued looking down into his tea while he answered. Let's say I went for a little holiday. He said and smiled. 𝑨𝒖 frowned his eyebrows. Oikawa continued eating his dessert and listened to conversation. You mean break, right? Yeah, you can put it that way if you want. How long are you going to stay in Japan? Who knows, it should be for a while. 𝑨𝒖 sighed and rubbed his eyes. If Hinata didn't want to answer him straightly, there was no point in asking further. He just wished that Hinata would share a little bit more about these things with them when they connected to them. Alright, I will not pray further. Anyway, what are your plans while staying there? I don't have any plan in particular yet. I will do work from my schedule and spend time with family and friends for now and see how it turns out. Wait. You mean you will be doing work here? I thought this was your break from it? Oikawa asked in surprise but got smacked by 𝑨𝒖 from back on his head. So mean 𝑖whn, why did you hit me? Oikawa whined as he looked hurt at 𝑨𝒖. 𝑨𝒖 showed him an annoyed expression as if he was talking to an idiot while he answered. Because of your stupid question, Flatikawa. Obviously, he will have to do work even here. He's still a new singer, he can't just not do anything if he wants to continue his career. Oikawa mumbled in dissatisfaction. That's no reason for you to hit me, you know? 𝑨𝒖 turned to him once again with a murderous face. Huh. Hinata decided to step in by talking once again, even though he found their skirmishes amusing. Hajime-kun is right. But I will have a lot less work, so it's almost as if I have none. Hinata answered in a happy tone and smiled wholeheartedly at both of them. They did their fight but looked at Hinata in distrust. Both of them knew that he probably will have a lot of work anyway and find it a small amount just because his normal workload is enormous. Oikawa started for a moment and then continued eating dessert. 𝑨𝒖 did the same but noticed the confused face on Hinata's face. Why did they look at me with such a weird face? Hinata asked himself as he drank a little bit of his drink. Well, what about school? You have been homeschooled by a private teacher, so far, right? Oikawa asked while eating. 𝑨𝒖 and Hinata froze for a second and looked at Oikawa in disbelief. There was quite a while of silence, so Oikawa looked up and started to get nervous. Did I say something wrong? Oikawa asked unsurely. 𝑨𝒖 started to shake his head in disbelief and Hinata took both of his hands and put them on the stool as he looked down on the table shocked. Oikawa was really scared of what he did wrong. I can't believe this. 𝑨𝒖 whispered in disbelief. Hinata looked up and met Oikawa's eyes with a serious face. Did you just ask something clever? Oikawa didn't react for a moment, but once he understood what happened and what they asked, he pouted and frowned at his friends who were making fun of them. So mean. I can't believe you have done this to me. Hinata started laughing and offended Oikawa and 𝑨𝒖 smirked. Why wouldn't we? I understand that you would do this to me, 𝑖whn. But how could you join him, 𝑠ho-chan? Don't support him in bullying me. 𝑨𝒖 looked the other way as he tried his best to stop laughing. I am so sorry, Toru-kun, but if you could see your face, Hinata said jerkily as he couldn't bring himself to stop laughing. Oikawa didn't help the situation because his dramatic reaction and furious face expression were hilarious. Hey. At least don't laugh while apologizing. How I'm supposed to believe your apology is sincere? It's not. Hinata started laughing even harder and 𝑨𝒖 could help but started to silently laugh too. Oi! Don't laugh. Oikawa said as he stood up and slammed the palms of his hand on the table, and as he did, the spoon he put next to his plate flew right into the middle of his dessert, and it disintegrated. At this moment Hinata was holding onto his stomach hard and didn't stop laughing as he tried to take a deeper breath. 𝑨𝒖 was also laughing out loud. Oikawa realized what happened, and with a destroyed face he sat down, and with his head in his hands he was looking right on his plate with a destroyed dessert. My dessert, he whispered in a broken voice. 𝑠𝑡OPP please and no more, Hinata tried to say but couldn't stop laughing. Oikawa looked at his two friends, and once he stared at them for a moment while they were laughing so hard that 𝑨𝒖 had closed eyes and Hinata was literally crying while holding his stomach. He started to laugh out too because his friends were really an amusing sight to see. Once they calmed down, they continued their conversation. Hinata asked a lot of questions about how volleyball was doing for them and stuff around it. Oikawa and 𝑨𝒖 were really quick to answer his questions, sometimes in such a detailed way that Hinata could almost feel as if he had been there. Right now, 𝑨𝒖 was telling Hinata a practical view about the first years because he said that what Oikawa said was meaningless and Hinata didn't care. The truth was that Hinata was really happy to get to know about the people who had been spending time with his friend as much as possible. Which means that in the end they're really great addition to our team. 𝑨𝒖 finished his speech and drank the last sip of his drink. Hinata smiled as he was looking down on the table. How he wishes to know them more. Well, what about your friends? In our calls you have been talking so much about your new friends playing volleyball, but I didn't see them today at practice and you didn't mention them just now? Hinata asked in confusion as he realized it. Oikawa blinked but immediately answered. I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you they were from the other teams we were talking about earlier. Oikawa said as he apological laughed but still got smacked in the back of his head by 𝑨𝒖. It's fine. It's just that it was weird for you to not talk about them right now when we were talking about volleyball, so I got a little confused. Sorry, I didn't notice that we didn't tell you at all. 𝑨𝒖 apologized once again and Hinata just smiled at him. He looked at the clock on the wall and noticed it was already time for him to start heading back. It was a little sad. He wanted to hear so much about how his friends were doing from face to face, but they merely talked about volleyball, how he came back to Japan, and some memories. He sighed and the two boys on the other side of the table looked at the time too. You said you don't have time till Saturday, right? Yeah. And you have a match on Sunday, so you will be training. 𝑨𝒖's sight at the hopeless situation. Hinata looked kind disappointed too, but Oikawa suddenly cleared his throat to get their attention. They both look at him. Then why don't you just come to our match? When you were still in America you were upset because you couldn't come, but now you can. Hinata's expression changed into one big bright smile. That's right, I get to see you two play this way. He shouted happily but immediately got glared at by the waiter, so he apologizes. All of them agreed that it was an amazing idea and they should do it. Hinata apologized that he needed to go, so they paid the bill and got out of the store, where they continued to the train station. They waved goodbye to each other and 𝑨𝒖 and Oikawa started to walk home. You noticed how sad he was when we talked about our teammates and classmates? Yeah, I got the feeling back then when we were talking about guys from other teams on the video call, but I wasn't sure. He really is all upset about not knowing them. Oikawa said, and 𝑨𝒖 knew that something was up. Because Oikawa was true and he thought the same, but there was no reason for Oikawa to say it out loud otherwise. He had some sort of plan. 𝑨𝒖 sighed. What are you planning? Hawa. Oikawa said, startled, but once he looked at 𝑨𝒖's face he just laughed. I'm not planning anything, I just got idea. Well, what stupid idea do you have in mind? Hey. That means you know. My ideas are great. Lie as much as you want, just tell me what kind of shitty idea you have, crappy kawa. Oikawa pretended to not listen to the first part of what 𝑨𝒖 said. He stops for a moment and looks up in the sky. Well, I thought that maybe we could add his to some 𝑔𝒄. Hinata was really busy these few days because of all the meetings he has had to attend. On Tuesday he had a meeting and he needed to get up before 6 a.m. so he could read through all the documents and prepare for it. Then he had a photo shoot which went pretty well. He got some of the best photos for his mother and sister, and around 4 p.m. he went home. Once he got there, he helped Natsu with her homework and mother with dinner. They all ate, and after that they spent some time together. Before he went to bed, he needed to read the document about the meeting he had on Wednesday. He went to sleep pretty late, but at least he wasn't in a rush. He knew that once he settled these meetings up, he won't need to go to any other so often. After all, these were just some organizing meetings about him arriving in Japan and how he will be maintaining his popularity. The main meeting about some specific deals will yet to come. He somehow managed to successfully finish the 2 meetings on Wednesday, even though he has had some complications from time to time. He was really happy that most of the people he had talked so far weren't so bad. They could be worse. He got home and texted Oikawa and Iwaizumi asking them how they are and stuff like that. Natsu took the chance that he was home and wanted to play with him, so he spent all of his time in the evening playing with Natsu, which was pretty enjoyable for him. He loved spending time with her, even though playing dress up was a little weird for him. He didn't know how to feel about it. If there was a day he enjoyed the most, it would be Thursday, because the only meeting he had was with the radio company about their night podcast the same day, and that was pretty fast, so he has had free time on his hand till evening. He decided to go through the city and look around because his mother was working and Natsu was in school. Once Natsu's school ended, he picked her up and they went to the park and then to the mall. When the evening arrived, he had to go to the radio company and begin the interview on radio. He ended up spending there about 4 straight hours, but he enjoyed it. Once he got home, he laid in his bed and fell asleep. On Friday he went to the company to actually sign the contract they had agreed on Wednesday. He immediately called Ms. Collins that the matter is finished and asked her if she knew something about when she will arrive in Japan. She only said to him that right now she doesn't know and she will eventually text him once she knows something closer to this matter. Hinata wasn't really happy about this because he needed to go to all the meetings that needed to be done in the present, even ones he normally wouldn't need to go. And he was afraid he would screw something up every time he went to them. After all, this wasn't his job, and even though he needed to orientate 𝑨𝒖 in this kind of matter, he wasn't taught much about it. Plus, Ms. Collins was always pretty helpful. Sometimes, of course, he felt like he would welcome a little bit more privacy, but that doesn't mean he wasn't grateful about all the things Ms. Collins is doing for him even right now. He sighed as he laid in his bed with his headphones on and mobile in his hand. It was past 2 p.m. and he used his free time before the next meeting to look through his videos on YouTube. He wasn't the one mostly managing the YouTube channel with official videos, but he always knew what exactly was happening on it because he felt like it would be weird if he didn't. He listened to some of his songs and tried to focus on where he could sing it better. He then wandered off with his thought to the fact that he didn't have any vocals lessons lately. Of course, he didn't have any dance classes either because this matter still wasn't decided and it was the theme of the meeting he will be coming to later, but he still felt a little anxious. He was worrying about the possibility that he would get out of his condition. To prevent this, he was running every night and was working out in the morning, but it still wasn't the same as dancing. He could forget the moves or something in this time, and that scared him. Lastly, he had no idea how it would be about his school. He was pretty shocked when Oikawa asked him because he didn't really think about it. Homeschooling wasn't for now the option because there were other matters that needed to be done than finding him teacher, but he wasn't sure if going to public school was a good idea. Or more like, was it even an option? He may not be known here in Japan that much, but he never went to high school and he wasn't sure if his company was okay with it. He decides to not think about this matter for now and just focused on the other things while he promised to himself that he would ask Ms. Collins about it when he will be on call with her later. Saturday was a pretty calm day for Hinata. Right in the morning they went to Aqua Park because his sister said a while ago that she wanted to go there with him. They spent there all the forenoon, and for a lunch they went to near sushi shop because Hinata's mother win rock paper sister over where will they be eating. After that they all went home, and for a while all of them were doing their things. Hinata took this chance to try to find out who Oikawa's and Iwaizumi's teams have matched with. He thought that it would be easy to find, but he got lost. Like a lot of times because he couldn't orientate 𝑨𝒖 at all. But after some time of frustration, confusion, and a lot more emotion phases, he found it. The name of the team was 𝒂𝒂. Never heard of it. He thought to himself. But not like I know much about Japanese high school teams. I gave up on following what was going on in these kinds of tournaments after I started to get a little more known in America because I got really busy. Were the thoughts that followed. He ended up sharing some information about the team, and even though it was just some random high school team, in his eyes he ended up finding tons of information, and for a moment he was really surprised. He knew that some of them are aiming for nationals and being pro players, but there was information about almost every playing member of the club. Some pages even have analysis of their play and psychic, at least for some players. Till dinner he was on his computer reading this info and more. He wanted to know more about this and wanted to orientate 𝑨𝒖 in it. He cheered for 𝑨𝒖 and other teams he found on some kind of ladder. It was actually pretty interesting. He couldn't understand most at the beginning, but now he understood more than a half of the things he found. He remembered what oikawa and iwaizumi were always telling him about the systematic play and about the plays he watched. At that time, he didn't catch some things, but now he understood them. He didn't realize how much he had gotten into it till his mother called him for dinner. He closed the notebook and went downstairs to eat. Once they finished eating, they decided to watch a movie and go to bed. Hinata's mom already knew about his plan on Sunday, and they made their own, so it was good for all of them to go to bed earlier. When he laid down in his bed preparing to go to sleep, he took his phone and texted iwaizumi and oikawa. I will be watching, don't you dare lose. Okay, I'm glad that nothing came up and we will win. Right. As 𝑈WHN said. There's no way we would ever lose. He smiled at their reply and put the phone on the table next to his bed. Hinata woke up to see Natsu laying on him as his alarm started to ring. He slowly put Natsu on beside him as he sat up to turn off the alarm on his phone. Natsu grows and he looks at the screen time. It was still early, so he decided to take a shower and then wake Natsu up. Once he did it, he came downstairs and started helping his mother with breakfast. When they're done and start eating, Hinata checks once again the location oikawa sent him last night. Then he checks the train. He has some time on his hands, so he used it to clean up after breakfast and check if he has any new email from Ms. Collins. After that he got his things and said goodbye to his mother and sister as he left the house. Hinata arrived at the gym and whistled to himself. This was an official match, and the gym they were supposed to play at was even bigger than the gym at 𝑨𝒖. He grinned excitedly as he entered. It took him a while before he oriented in the system and found which side did cheer for 𝑨𝒖. Once he found it, he sat only a few seats from their school cheering group. Thanks to the fact that he was there early, he could pick any seat he liked, so he picked the one with the best view according to his opinion. Hinata looked at the clock to check the time. Both teams didn't even yet come to the court, so it was pretty early. He chooses to spend the remaining time on his phone till the moment that one of the teams started to warm up. It was the rival team 𝒂𝒂, so he started to observe them. It was really fascinating. All the members, even those who will not play, were running or doing some exercise, and after that they quickly practiced spikes and sets. From the look at them, they seemed pretty good to Hinata's. Of course, he also looked at 𝑨𝒖 once they showed up, and after they finished warming up, excitement spilled through his whole body. He was observing the match very closely from the start till the end. The rival team seemed to have an inexperienced setter, and as he looked more closely at him, he recognized him. It was actually his first year, so his performance was pretty good, though there were some silly mistakes. He also saw oikawa's set in real match, which was something amazing. Soon there started to be some problems with the blocks. 𝒂𝒂's team was having a little trouble to break through it, but it didn't create a big gap between scores thanks to the error rate of 𝒂𝒂. The first must have gone to 𝒂𝒂 with points 25-21. They had a little break which Hinata took to buy some food. As he was walking the hall and looking in his phone, he bumped into someone and immediately bowed down in apology. I'm so sorry for bumping into you, I wasn't looking. Hinata didn't get an answer and straightened up to look at the person. It was one of the players from 𝒂𝒂. He quickly remembered his name and position. He also noticed that there were the other people with him. Setter, ace, and middle blocker. What an interesting trio. Still, isn't this guy a little huge? I'm not even that small, and yet most of the volleyball members are higher, but this guy can't even be compared to them. And he has no eyebrows. Hinata thought to himself. It looked like the one at the left. Setter, if Hinata remembered correctly, wanted to say something, but suddenly the ace put a hand on the shoulder of the middle blocker and smiled as he started to speak. Sorry, this guy doesn't really talk much. Oh, okay. Once again, I'm sorry that I bumped into you, I didn't mean to. KJ, see, it's all good now. No worries. Alright, I'm glad. Hinata felt relieved that no grounds would be held. Then he realized that the one he bumped into is the one who does these amazing blocks. He was surprised at himself for not connecting it, but got super excited all of a sudden as he looked at the guy in front of him with sparkling eyes. You're the middle blocker who does the insane blocks, right? It's so cool. Really like an iron wall, it looks too powerful too. He started to talk about his amazing block, and the setter and captain looked at each other confusedly. Aone in the meanwhile started to get a little bit flustered, but always hummed in agreement when Hinata asked something, and it looked like they had an actual conversation. Nor Aone nor Hinata noticed that Futakuki and Manuwa took a step back and started to whisper to each other. I thought that guy was a fan of 𝑨𝒖 because he was holding their leaflet in his hand. Yeah, I thought so too. Then how come he's complimenting Aone? Maybe he's just interested in volleyball and Aone impressed him? Maybe. The real question is how come Aone is acting like this? Right. It almost looks like they are having an actual conversation. Still, Aone is not speaking. That doesn't change anything, as you can see. Before they could say more, a person put his hand on Hinata's left shoulder and leaned forward, which led to his head above Hinata's right shoulder. Yahoo, look what we have here, IWHN. TCH, don't drag me into your meddling trashy kawa. Hinata looked at Oikawa and was surprised. He didn't even notice him thanks to the fact how much he was into his conversation with Aone. Futakuki and Manuwa stood beside Aone. Oikawa. Manuwa. Oikawa smirked at Manuwa, who stared at him. Hinata shook Oikawa's hand. Toru-chan. How come you're here? Sho-chan, I didn't expect to see you so soon. I was just going with my friend to get some snacks. Oh. Hinata looked behind Oikawa to see kinda Ichi, Iwaizumi, and a member he didn't see at the training, but if he remembered the info, it was 𝑨𝒖. He immediately greeted them. Hello. Hello. Hi. Shoyo. He smiled at them and looked back at Oikawa, who was smiling widely. Aone hummed and everyone looked at him. Yeah, I know them. That's surprising, I thought you were only their fan. Huh? How did you know I was cheering for them and not you? The leaflet in your hands. Oh right. Sho-chan, we're getting the food, are you coming with us? Oikawa asked as he looked at Hinata and shot glare at the trio from Deiko. Of course. Then I guess I should say goodbye. Hope you have luck in the second part of the game. Hinata quickly said goodbye to Aone and others, and before they could say anything, Oikawa was already dragging him to the snack shop. As the others from 𝑨𝒖 passed by them, Iwaizumi stopped for a little to give them a small bow. I'm sorry for him. Iwaizumi apologized and caught up to his team. The match ended and 𝑨𝒖 won the second part with the points 23-25. Hinata was overjoyed. It was an amazing enjoyment for him. He was so happy that as he was waiting for 𝑨𝒖 to come out of the gym to see Oikawa and Iwaizumi, he was humming some happy melody. Once they came out, Hinata waved his hand to attract their attention. Oikawa, who was looking for Hinata, immediately noticed and ran up to him to hug him. The rest of the team slowly came to them. Sho-chan. What do you think about my play? I told you we would win. It was awesome. It was like whoosh. Bum. Way. Hinata said once Iwaizumi pulled Oikawa from the hug. 𝑐𝑖WHN. I told you he adores me. 𝑨𝒖 whatever, just don't hug him, you were just playing, you smell. Huh? No, I don't. I took a shower. Iwaizumi looked at him with a straight face and then sighed and looked at Hinata. I'm glad you enjoyed the game. We will probably go with the team for food to celebrate. Want to tag along and then hang out with us? I would love to. Hinata said, full out happiness, and the team was standing there and looking at him. Some of them saw him the last time, but for some it was their first meeting. They knew who Hinata was because they texted about him in the group chat after the last meeting. Still, in person if it was a little different. Of course, only if it's alright with the team, I don't want to meddle in. They won't mind. Oikawa said, but Hinata still looked at the team and waited for a reply. Some of them slightly nodded or said a simple yes, and he smiled at them. Alright. Some of you don't know me. I'm Hinata Shoyo, friend of Toru-chan and Hajime-chan. Thank you for letting me tag along. The team members introduced themselves and all of them started to walk to the food shop. They ended up sitting around two big tables, and as they ate, they were all talking together. Hinata quickly adapted, and soon enough they were talking casually to each other, and the team members were telling him random funny stories that happened to them. All of them really enjoyed it and didn't even notice how quick the time went by. They slowly started to go home, and soon enough even Hinata needed to start heading back. He said his goodbye and went to take his train home. When he arrived at home, the sky was already dark and his mother and sister were at home. He greeted them and went to change his clothes. After that he sat down at his computer and tried to write to Ms. Collins. Once he was done, he took one of his plus highs and went downstairs to watch TV with his mother and sister. After he sat down on the couch, Natsu got up and went to sit next to him so she could cuddle him. Like that, they watched the movie and then fell asleep. Hinata's mother turned off the TV and put a blanket over them as she went to her room to sleep.